Hello, today we will be discussing the engineering portfolio. First of all, what is your engineering portfolio? Your engineering portfolio is a design and team review over your whole competition season. It has a 15-page limit and it will contain information about your team, outreach events and activities, a detailed summary of your build timeline, noticeable changes between competitions, information about the programming timeline, and innovative solutions that your team has made. But why do you need an engineering portfolio? Your team has an engineering portfolio to track your progress and to summarize all team activities, right? During the qualification tournament, regional, state, and worlds events, your team will be presenting your engineering portfolio to judges. The judges will then use this information to gauge your team's skills and see if you apply for awards. So also remember, if there's an award your team thinks that you deserve due to what you've worked on or that you're applicable for, always make sure to include the correct info in your engineering portfolio in order to target that award. On the right, you can see an award description from a couple years back in the first resources. And every year, along with the competition manual, they always send out descriptions of the awards and things that you should include in your portfolio. Now, let's talk about documentation. Documentation is very important in the build season. This means grabbing information, grabbing quotes, grabbing photos, taking videos, charts, anything that you can use to build a report of your robot and your team throughout the timeline. What you did, what you haven't done, what's good and what's not, right? So again, the things that you need is you need photos, right? Having long paragraphs on a page of text and having it just be there is not very appealing to the eye. You want to have photos, you want to have graphics, charts, something to aid the eye. That way the judges don't look at one paragraph, right? This will help them easily consume the data on the page. As you can see on the left from FTC Team 516, you can see how along with their drivetrain, they also include labels of everything they have. The judges can quickly take this in, and then also it displays the team's knowledge. Same thing on the right. They use a lot of words and text, but they highlight certain words and also use charts and graphics and quotes, which are great and shows their interactions. Right, so using those bullet points, graphs, charts, bold, and highlighting words are always great, but of course you need photos and good quality photos. But now let's talk about the details and what you need to get during the build season. Right, in the beginning of your build season, you need to get photos of your design ideas. If you have any sketches, any rough CAD drawings, always take photos of them, right? If they're bad, you can always recreate them at a later date. But right now, it's important just to get that information down, right? Take any photos of any prototypes you have. If you tried and build your robot out of a different material other than metal in the beginning, just to test it out, take photos of those. If you have your drivetrain already ready, then take photos that see what you have and then use that to build what you change, right? On the left from FTC Team 252, you can see they have drawings and sketches of their printed parts and their prototypes and just their general ideas, as well as a good problem and solution. Now, during the build season, this is very important. This is your most important time to take photos of. You can get photos of your drive team practicing. You can get photos of your code or at least any programming segments that you use, such as if you use a Limelight, a camera, or any odometry pods, always include those. But for actual mechanical parts, always get photos of your attachment designs. During the season, your attachments are bound to change. You're bound to make changes. So include different photos for each iteration. As you can see on the right, Team Titans includes great photos and had structures of their version 1, 2, and 3 of their claw from a couple years back. And this is great because it can show the progression throughout the season and how they decided to change their materials, right? So getting those photos of the attachment designs and your iterations is really important because it shows your progress as a team. Include also the small changes that you make, right? Any 3D printed parts, any CAD designs, and just any changes that you make at all or anything that you make, right? As you can see, they also have capabilities, a graphic. They also have just the photos themselves, clear and bold, which is great. You can easily assess and see what changed. Now, during actual competitions, when November, December, January, February, March, all the way to April, whenever you're actually competing, this becomes a little bit more difficult to take photos of. It is always great if you have somebody on media or if you have a parent around. Have photos of your team working on the robot, talking to other teams, even driving. These are all great. You can always post them on your social media, or if you have room, you can include them in your engineering portfolio. If not, the main focus I would use to take photos of is in between your competitions or in between your matches. If a piece breaks, take a photo of it. See how did it break, why did it break, and what are you going to do to fix it. Include that information in your portfolio as well, right? If you change a piece or a structure in between competitions, include the before and after and why you changed it. These changes are so important because that whole engineering portfolio is about your engineering design process. So you need to talk about the process itself. Now, important tip added on the bottom of this is that you want to have clear, focus, and good photos, right? This means good lighting, a solid background behind the object that you're taking a photo of, and light shining onto it, no shadows on it, and you need to be able to clearly identify each part of the object you're taking a photo of and have it be clear. This will be really great if you ever have to print out your document or you have to blow it up really big. That way you can always see if it's high quality. Now, earlier I talked about statistics to track. Now here, I'm actually going to go a bit more into it. As before, you saw how different teams included charts or graphs or even photos, but some important things you want to take count of are your score. So for example, you can have for every 10 attempts to score in the goal, 7 of them are success. You can always include that. Or you can include how has your ranking improved between competitions or scrimmages. How has your scoring improved exponentially based off of what changes you've made, right? Or the percentage of accuracy for each prototype. If you were to go back to, you can notice that they have the capabilities in the cone score for each version. Include that. That's really great. That shows why you showed the progress in a very minimalistic manner. Now, for outreach events, you want to get photos again of teams interacting. Outreach is all about interactions. So you want to get those photos of teams interacting with professionals, with other teams, or even just interacting in STEM awareness activities. These are all really good. Always make sure to have your team members in the photo and then others as well. Now, if you forget to document, which is a very common thing, then you can always grab photos from other mentors, students, parents, or anybody else. At certain events, there are actually photographers from the first organizations who take photos, and so they may have some photos on their website. However, this is not very likely. If you need to get photos of your CAD, in Onshape, you can look through your CAD history and bring back old versions. You can do that. You can grab a screenshot of it and put that in. And then if you have any gaps in your timeline, you can bold information. If you just have a lot of text, you can just bold, make certain information bigger, certain numbers, right, to bring the judge's attention. Because when they look at your engineering portfolio, they'll be looking at it for a short amount of time. So you want to draw their attention to the most important details. Now, organizing the portfolio. This is just a suggestion. Organizing and customizing your engineering portfolio depends on what your team has done and your accomplishments. For certain teams who are more programming oriented, they may tend to put their more important information in the beginning, so they don't miss out on it in the end when they're presenting. And vice versa if they're build or outreach oriented. Think about what your team is best at and what your team has done the most for. Now, when you organize your engineering portfolio, you generally want to organize it in the manner that you will be presenting it to the judges. When you're presenting it to the judges, you can give your engineering portfolio to them and they will flip through. If you can go chronologically with that, it will greatly aid them in being able to follow your information, right? So, and also because you're presenting, you have a time limit. So useless or irrelevant information should be added more towards the end, and more important should be in the beginning and the middle. That way you could always make sure you hit on it during those presentations. So, generally what most teams do is they have their team information in the beginning. They have their team number, team name, where they're located, their goals for the season, who their team members are, etc. Then they can talk about their outreach events, their robot design, their programming and innovations, their build timeline and changes, and scouting and minor details. This is the general ascension that I have seen most teams go in terms of their engineering portfolio. However, again, it varies completely, right? And also, you also want to include like basic information. Like, for example, you don't want to have a lengthy name for a part. If you're just trying to say intake, call it your intake, and you can discuss the details of it more in person. But your engineering portfolio should be easy to follow along. So when you're including information, don't be too specific. Right? Now, general formatting rules is each page should have your team name, team number, page number, and year, or also the competition season. For example, in 2024 to 2025, the FGC theme was Into the Deep. So on the top of the page or on the bottom of the page, they would have page 1, page 2, page 3, their team number, the team name, and Into the Deep at the top. That way it's easy for judges to reference. If they're ever looking at a page, they can easily take a look and see, oh, this is their team name, and they can look at the number to make sure you're in page limits, right? Your title page is not necessarily considered a page, so that would be page 16, but as long as you don't have any very important information on there, right? Always use left aligned or justified texting formatting whenever you have long paragraphs. Having right aligned, it should always be anchored to photo. So if you have a photo on the right and a text on the left, you can always right align that text, right? And bullets, you always want to have them left centered as they are on the screen. Having them centered in the middle or having them right aligned adds a weird spacing, and that's sort of jarring to the eye. You don't necessarily want that. When choosing your colors, use your team colors, and if you don't have team colors, don't go over 4. Try and keep the colors consistent, your background consistent, your accents consistent, etc. Using cutout photos is amazing, right? You can add a cutout and you can put them against a solid background. That way the focus is only on your robot and none of the background noise in the photo. And then also, again, if there's a lot of text, you can always highlight in bold. And if you're using fonts, try and keep it also to 3 or 4. Have one for headline, body, and emphasis ideas. You generally also don't want to add too many graphics. And so if you have any animations on your online slides, your judges will be getting a paper copy, so they won't be able to see it. And generally, you want to have good aesthetics. Your engineering portfolio is also based off aesthetics and readability. A rule of thumb is if your engineering portfolio is not easy to read when it's printed in black and white, then it's not going to be easy to read or appealing to the eye when printed in color. Yes, so as I said it again, include cutout photos, highlight your bold and keywords. You can use boxes or lines to break up sections or paragraphs of text. Avoid too many graphics, and judges will be seeing the paper copy. Always remember that. Always remember to print it and check for any errors. Utilize the first resources page online. There are several platforms and several teams that have their engineering portfolio online that you can take a look at and take inspiration from. Never copy another engineering portfolio because other teams have other information and other photos that you may not have access to. So keep that in mind. Make everything your own. Thank you.